On today's show, the Phoenix Suns, it's their league and we're just living in it. They destroy the Miami Heat. Nikola Jokic continues his run. Is he the MVP favorite, and should anyone else be even close to him right now? And how dead are the Lakers? The Houston Rockets going to win in overtime against them. We got that and more. We'll play Count it up and more on today's Locked On NBA. Nick Angstadt locked on Mavs. Alex Wolfe locked on Knicks. Jackson Gatlin locked on Rockets. Let's go.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome. You are locked on to the NBA. This may be the second time I'm recording this. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, where you can watch this show. And the show that me and Kane Pittman of Locked On Bucks did lives in the ether somewhere, the cloud that I can't find somewhere. But joining me on today's show, Alex Wolfe, Locked On Knicks, Jackson Gatlin, Locked On Rockets, and Locked On NBA on Mondays. Boys, thanks for joining me. We got a bunch of games in the association, so we can't waste any time at all. Let's get into our first one right here. Phoenix Suns win 111-90 against the Miami Heat. The Phoenix Suns are just absolutely insane. Alex Wolfe, are we just living in the Phoenix Suns world right now? Because they are dominating the NBA in front of us.
It sort of seems like it, you know? I mean, I look at the Miami Heat as a team that, like, as a Knicks fan, just completely annihilated the Knicks a few times this year. And then the Suns just annihilated them. So it's sort of like, you know, being a fan of the team that's the little tiny fish, and then the bigger fish comes and eats that fish, and that's the Heat.
The Qui-Gon Jinn, there's always a bigger fish.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden a big shark comes in, and that like big shark is the Suns. Yeah, I mean they're insane right now. They're so good. Like, just watching them play is so fun too. You know, it's like no matter who they're missing, they've got that well-oiled machine about them where they remind me almost of like the Spurs of old, sort of, where like someone can be missing, you know, but it doesn't matter because they've just got it figured out. You know, they would need to have literally like 5 starters missing for it to make them skip a beat.
Chris Paul out, Cam Johnson out, Jimmy Butler was out for the Heat, but the Suns still hold on to win. Ayton and Booker were holding it down for them in this one. Their defense was just amazing. Jackson, what makes the Suns defense so incredible? Because they held in the third quarter, they held this Heat team to just 19 points, 16 points in the fourth. They just locked down. What is this team so good at?
I think they've just got a bunch of guys who are just bought into their defensive schemes. And then honestly, playing around DeAndre Ayton, him being able to kind of anchor that paint for the Suns is what really helps them. I don't think he gets nearly enough credit as the guy on that Suns team that really helps them tick, right? You've got all this talk going on about the contract extension with him and, you know, the kind of issues surrounding that whole forefront. But at the end of the day, Ayton is the guy that is kind of the unsung hero, I feel like, of this Phoenix Suns team, right? Chris Paul gets his flowers. Devin Booker gets his flowers. Even the occasional role player who pops off for the Suns team gets, you know, a lot of love and admiration. But I feel like DeAndre Ayton is the guy who just shows up on a nightly basis, does his job, does the dirty work, and doesn't complain for touches, doesn't, you know, want to go out there and be in the spotlight necessarily. And he's a big part of the reason that their defense is so consistently good.
And you just can't have him switch on somebody, right? Like, you just can't have him switch onto a guard, and if you're on the other team, because he can stay with them. He can guard the rim, obviously, really credibly, one of the best in the NBA. And so there's like almost no weakness to his defensive game at this point because they cover up so many other things so well for this Suns team. It's wild. At one point in this game, the Suns were out rebounding the Heat 40-20. They were doubling up in the rebound department. I think they finished, the Heat had 38 and the Suns finished with 55 rebounds. It's such a big advantage that they have. Alex, watching the Heat a couple times as, you know, for Locked On Knicks, do you trust this Heat offense? What is going on with this Heat offense? I know they were missing Jimmy Butler, but their just offense completely stalled out. Do you trust this Heat offense to win a couple rounds and maybe even like make the finals again?
You know, it's tough to say, right? Like, the thing is, have they really gotten enough time together this year? You know, it seems like somebody's always hurt. Like, I could say specifically from when I watched them play the Knicks, and I've watched them a couple other times on national games or whatever, but it just seems like, you know, Lowry's been out for a decent amount of time. Like, Butler has been out with nicks and bruises and stuff like that. You know, various guys on their team have missed time, and that stuff does take, you know, reps if you want to play at a championship level. I think they've shown flashes, and they certainly have the right formula. You know, they have the dribble penetration. They have the, the inside presence in Adebayo, who also can, credibly stretch the floor a little bit, at least with mid-range jumpers and things of that nature. And then, the outside shooters, Lowry, Duncan Robinson, all those guys. So like the formula is still there. I just don't know for sure if, particularly against, I feel like in a game like this, even without Butler, obviously he's a huge part of what they do, but we've seen offenses that are kind of built around that purely 3-point shooting, mantra, which I'm sure Jackson could speak to. This was something that sort of plagued the Rockets at times, under the Harden, system. That doesn't always work in the playoffs.
You had to bring that up back to Jackson.
I had to, I wasn't even planning on it.
Wound, man.
I wasn't even thinking about that. And then as I started talking, I was like, damn, who am I sharing the stage with right now?
The stream of consciousness somehow always goes back to James Harden. He's somehow like the Abe Lincoln, right? Like, isn't there a thing where people say that everybody, like all Americans, think about Abe Lincoln at least once a day? I think all NBA fans
7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, right?
Think about James Harden at least once.
Just James Harden rent free in everybody's head. That's what's happening.
There's just so much Tyler Hero. There's too much Tyler Hero, I think, for me on the offense. He took 20 shots in this game. He had 5 more than anybody else. Duncan Robinson had 15 in this game. But Jackson, how far can you go just relying on Tyler Hero and then hoping Jimmy Butler, when he comes back, can take over in moments like he did in that run a couple years ago when they went to the finals?
I think you got to imagine, right? This Miami Heat team at full strength, their closer is undoubtedly Jimmy Butler, right? He's going to be the guy to have the ball in his hands to kind of take those big time shots in the closing moments or force the defense to bend to his will and then create an opportunity for somebody else. You're not going to walk away from like a game 6 or 7 in the playoffs where Tyler Hero is going to walk away with 20-something shot attempts unless he absolutely has
Tyler Hero just heard you say that and said, "Oh, bet." Like, oh, bet. Like, are you sure?
But like realistically, right? If Jimmy Butler was in this game, I don't think you see Tyler Hero, get up to 20 shot attempts, especially in a game where he just doesn't have it going necessarily, right? We've seen games where Tyler Hero absolutely pops off. And in those nights, yeah, absolutely. Get him the ball, let him continue to cook. But in a game like this, the shot attempts had to be, dispersed or spread around somewhere in the offense. And Tyler Hero was just the guy that they wound up with, getting the majority of the shots tonight.
It's because he can get his own shot, right? Like, he's the one guy. I mean, Lowry took 3 shots in this game. How does Lowry take just 3 shots in this game? He's just in Miami, he's been a different player than what we saw with the Raptors, where he could just take over games at times. And that wasn't exactly all his game, but we've been waiting for Bam Adebayo to take this next step forward, Alex. Like, we've been waiting for him to take this step forward to be like, all right, you're an all-star. Like, start taking over games offensively. He can do his little, jump hook, like little jumpers in the lane and stuff like that. When is he going to start taking over games and be the offensive force? And we just haven't really seen it yet. And so in games like this, it stands out.
I think it's difficult for centers of a certain mold to sort of break out from being a specialist, to being a center that can be, in that conversation with the Embiids, the Jokic's of the world, where they're just so skilled. I think Adebayo has some of those skills, but I think they are still developing. He obviously does the things that he does really well, extremely well, being an anchor of a defense, finishing around the rim. He's got, like I said, a little bit of a mid-range game, but and he's a really good passer for a big too, but he just isn't, he's not quite at that level yet. And I think the Heat recognize that. That's why they have Jimmy Butler. That's why they brought on Kyle Lowry and, spent the resources to get him. That's why, they entrust Tyler Hero with so much. And I don't know if there's anything wrong with that, but it certainly shows in games like this. If you have Adebayo and you need a little more out of him, and you can't necessarily tap into that next gear yet. And he's still young, though. It could still come, And
it says something that we're not asking the same thing of DeAndre Ayton on the other side. You look at these two teams and how they're built, and like DeAndre Ayton, we could easily say the same things about him. He's a number 1 pick overall? Shouldn't he be the one with this, expanded offensive game and all this? We're not asking DeAndre Ayton to be that because the Suns have covered it up in other ways. Mikal Bridges is taking a step forward. Jay Crowder, when he's hot, can hit some shots here. Cameron Payne, and they added Holiday and Shamet. Like, they have some of these other scorers that they can rely on at times. Obviously, Booker and Chris Paul are the number 1s, but it's interesting to see the dynamic of those two guys and look at them on these two different teams and see how they're built. Last one here, Jackson Gatlin. You cover a team in the West. Who's got the best chance of beating this Suns team, or are they just going to the finals?
It's so weird, Nick. I feel like, hey, you cover a team in the West too, first off. So there's that. I mean,
I didn't want to say, hey, you cover a team in the West. You may not know much about the playoff race, but still we can
so you teed yourself up for like the shot and then didn't go through with it. Come on, man.
No.
At least deliver. No.
I reeled it back last minute.
It does feel like this Suns team, they just steamroll through everybody. No Chris Paul. They still function like a well-oiled machine. I think that's a testament to Devin Booker's growth and the way that he is embodying more of a playmaker role for this team in the absence of Chris Paul. Speaking with Brendan Clean of Locked on Suns, on this very show a couple weeks back about who's going to step up for the Suns with no Chris Paul, and Devin Booker has to take more of an increased playmaker role. And we're seeing that he had 9 assists in this game. Like, that's not the Devin Booker that you would have gotten 2 years ago. Like, he has learned so much from Chris Paul. As far as a team in the West, I think the Suns are just kind of head and shoulders above everybody else. And it doesn't feel like they're getting the respect that they deserve.
We're giving it to them.
They're clear cut the team that I think is going to make it out of the Western Conference this season.
They are clear-cut that team right now, and is Jokic clear-cut that guy for MVP? We'll talk about his case, and then how dead are the Los Angeles Lakers? Jackson Gatlin witnessed the murder in person of Jalen Green in overtime against the Lakers. We'll talk about that game and the rest of them on today's Locked On NBA. But before we do, let me tell you about Athletic Greens. It's the easiest thing that you can do and the best thing you can do for your body in 60 seconds. You just take 1 scoop of it, you put it in your water. This is a 30 ounce and you can just, you fill it up, and it's the best thing you can do for your body. 10 years ago, the guy that created Athletic Greens was, a wrestler. He was pretty in shape. He's like a health enthusiast. He's trying to figure out what to do. He's always feeling fatigued. He didn't know what was going on with himself. He didn't know what was happening. So he goes to the doctor, and they're like, "Hey, we got the fix for you." And they set him up on this regimen of 20 vitamins a day. This dude is just popping pills all over the place, trying to get all of his levels right. And it was costing him $100 a day. And he goes, this can't be the answer. And you know what? He figured out what the answer was, and that is Athletic Greens. Check it out. With 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source, superfoods, probiotics, and more. Go check out what AG1 can do for you. AG1 is the product from Athletic Greens. It's absolutely incredible. You take it every single day. It helps you out, helps your immune system, your gut health, all that kind of stuff. Helps you. It even says that it helps aging. Jackson, you can look as youthful as you do right now for much longer if you took AG1. Take it. Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NBA Network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NBA Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Check out AG1 Athletic Greens. Also, I want to tell you about Bet Online. College basketball is coming back. I don't know about you guys, but I cannot stand college basketball at any point other than just literally March Madness, right? Like that's like the only time I'm ready to watch. But I'm ready to watch, and I'm ready to put some money down with Bet Online. So you can go check out all the odds, the props, the lines, all that kind of stuff. We got a couple of lines already. A couple of tournaments. ACC tournament. Duke versus Syracuse in New York. Alex, are you feeling that game? Duke is a 14.5-point favorite. Do you think Syracuse can cover?
I'm feeling scouting 2 top 10 picks on Duke. Can I bet on which one might end up? I was going to
say, if you're a podcaster that has to scout a couple of these teams, maybe you want to make it a little more interesting. Put some money on it. Check out Bet Online. It's not just basketball. They cover everything from live betting, your favorite Vegas casino games, and more. Head to the website, use the mobile device, learn more about the trends in action. Bet Online. It's where the game starts. All right, Alex Wolfe, Jackson Gatlin, Nick Angstadt here. We are breaking down the games in the NBA. This is Locked On NBA. The Denver Nuggets get the win against the Sacramento Kings. Denver Nuggets were without, obviously, Jamal Murray still, Michael Porter Jr. still, but Will Barton out for them, the all-time leader in Denver Nuggets three-pointers made. That will always be Will Barton's title until Jamal Murray takes it. Bones Highland out for them, Jeff Green out for them as well. For Sacramento, Sabonis serving his 1-game suspension for just mauling that referee. Just absolutely terrible things that we never want to see happen again. From Sabonis for bumping the ref, getting the suspension. Holmes out for them as well. But Jokic getting the win and absolutely just looking like he should against a team like this. 38 points for him, 18 boards, 7 assists. Jackson Gatlin, is this Jokic's MVP award? Can anyone take it from him?
I think when you look across the landscape of the NBA, it really is. It's boiling down to, I think, a two-man race. Like, I think maybe you can put Giannis in there as like a distant third, but I don't think that this is nearly the most dominant version of Giannis that we've seen before. And I think the two storylines following Nikola Jokic, obviously, and then the guy over there playing for the 76ers, who's also pretty darn good, Joel Embiid. Those are the two guys that I think it's going to come down to a two-man race for the MVP award. Again, right? And it would be, there's a part of me that wonders, like, if Joel Embiid is just going to have, like, if this is like his, super villain, like, origin story, like he gets beat out for the MVP award a second time by Nikola Jokic. I don't know. I've heard the argument being made that, Jokic is doing more with less, right? With like his supporting cast that he has with the
Do you want me to read his lineup for you today? Like,
I mean, yeah, go for it.
Aaron Gordon started with him, Austin Rivers, Monte Morris, Devon Reed. That was his starting lineup with Jokic tonight. Off the bench, Campazzo is all of a sudden back. Bryn Forbes, who made Heat fans cry last year. JaMychal Green. DeMarcus Cousins making a reappearance. I mean, this is the team that Jokic is like leading to some of these wins. Now they're playing the Kings in this one. We won't make Matt George cry anymore, but it's not maybe the greatest win, but still the things that Jokic is doing right now are just insane. And yeah, he has maybe that advantage because of how bad his team has been around him. Alex, is that good enough excuse for you to put him number one, or do you think some of those guys in the East have a better case?
Well, first off, shout out Davon Reed. I got to cover him in New Jersey stand-up when he was in high school. But anyway, now starting on a Jokic team with a lot of players missing. But
wow,
no, right?
That was a shout out and a shot all in one. Like,
also, he didn't even give a shout out to former Rockets legend and former New York Knicks legend Austin Rivers. So there's that too.
Yeah, there's that too. No, but like, I think where I stand on the Jokic versus Embiid thing, like, it's tough, right? Because they are sort of, I think they're under basically the same circumstances this year, very similar. And, I think that maybe the addition of, to bring it all back to Harden again, 7 degrees to Harden.
Here we go. The Abe Lincoln theory again.
But the addition of Harden now down the stretch, if that leads to the Sixers then, achieving a higher seed, maybe they work into the 2 seed or even the 1 seed, maybe that ends up, pushing Jokic actually further up in the thing, because they say, oh, well, Jokic is keeping up with, what Embiid is doing, but now with less of a supporting cast, he still doesn't have his Jamal Murray back, all his guys on his team he's missing. I don't know where I stand. I know that, Jokic, it's really impressive that this dude like even exists, that is getting, at the center position is top 10 in points, rebounds, assists. I think top 5 in like 3 of those categories.
It's wild. It's almost like he comes out of nowhere. Speaking of which, John Karalis, Locked On Celtics. Is this Jokic's MVP award and we're all living in his league right now?
I mean, he's certainly, stepped, I think, a step ahead of Joel Embiid. I think it's, if I were voting for it, I'd kind of have to almost flip a coin, but
he's going to throw in Jason Tatum's name. He's going to come in at the 11th hour and just play Jason Tatum for MVP.
But, let me finish. Can I finish?
Did you just Kanye West John Karalis?
I'm going to let you finish.
As a Swiftie, I know that really hurt your heart, Jackson.
Just a little bit. It's okay. I'm not internally crying or anything.
Tell me about Jason Tatum. They played a game against the Charlotte Hornets. Transition right into it like a pro.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's Nikola Jokic's MVP, but a guy like Jason Tatum is going to creep into the conversation at the end. I think what you're going to hear is, man, if Jason Tatum had been doing this from the beginning of the season, he'd be in this conversation as well. 44 points and like God level stuff, like some of the shots that he's hitting off balance, falling out of bounds, 3-pointers, stepping into shots, like just taking 2 steps over half court and just like, you know what, I'm shooting this thing. The past couple of games have been fantastic for him. And the best part about it is he's playing the right way. He's drawing the double teams. He's dominating without dominating the game. So I think if anything, Tatum is really like legitimately forcing his way into is the All NBA conversation, the first team All NBA conversation. Definitely not going to make the case for him for NBA, because I do think Jokic, with what he's been doing, that little spin move, that little dancey thing that he did in this tonight, like, oh my God. Like, I swore he traveled. I had to rewind it 4 times and be like, okay, there's the gather. Oh no, he didn't travel. So
like his steps aren't fast enough in the way that he spins. Like his steps aren't quick enough to travel in that motion, right? It's so weird how he uses his girth and momentum in that way.
I can't believe a guy that size can do all of that stuff without traveling. So, but yeah, I'm just here to sing the praises of Jason Tatum and his All NBA candidacy. But Jokic is probably MVP.
Since January 23rd, Tatum 37-5, 30 points, 7 boards, 5 assists. The Celtics are 17-3. What's the big thing what's their turnaround? What have they done?
I mean, it starts with health, but they have a small margin for error because Ime Udoka's only played like 7-8 guys. So any one of those guys goes down, you're gonna have a hard time. Like Jaylen Brown is dealing with the ankle injury, and against Charlotte, he didn't seem to be himself. He wasn't, the typical Jaylen Brown, and the result is that they struggled a little bit with Charlotte. So when they're fully healthy, they're going to be okay. But more so than anything, they've bought into Ime Udoka. I think if we're going to argue for awards, I can sit here and make a strong Ime Udoka Coach of the Year argument because I'll transition into this.
Ooh.
Coach of the Year is generally which coach is on a team that's exceeded our preseason expectations. Where
JB Bickerstaff.
Right.
There we go.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Those guys. What Ime has done is they have a team that's outperformed their prior performance. And you can say that he came in with we're going to move the ball. We're going to play defense at an elite level. And I'm going to get Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown to grow their games and become facilitators. And he's done all that. You've taken a team that started out poorly and could not handle that stuff. And now all of a sudden there's this massive turnaround that's almost hard to believe. And it's because all of the stuff that Ime Udoka was trying to get them to do, they figured out how to do it. So if there's any sort of Coach of the Year argument to make, to me, that's for once we have a coach who is proving that his coaching is a major reason why the team has exceeded and gotten to this level versus, the expectations argument. So I think Ime Udoka should have a strong case. He won't win it, but I think he should be up there.
For more Celtics takes and more like that, go check out Locked On Celtics. John Karalis just jumping in here out of nowhere. The audio listeners were like, "What the hell is happening right now?" People just like jumping in. Used to
put out a call. It's like just you said my name 3 times and I just pop up like Beetlejuice.
A name we don't like a bat signal thing, but I'll tell you, we can go with Beetlejuice as well.
A name we don't have to say 3 times is LeBron James because it's said enough around NBA circles. We'll talk about the Lakers, how they fell to the lowly Houston Rockets in overtime. Jackson Gatlin was in the building. We'll talk about that and break it all down and then play our favorite game of the week. We'll play that and more coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about rockauto.com. With the ever-increasing number of makes and models of cars, it's impossible for your local chain auto parts store to hold all the parts that you need. John Karalis has a car, and he needed to go find the parts for it, so he just left out of here. I
need wipers. I got to go get wipers.
He needs new wiper blades. Go check it out at Rock Auto. See all the parts available for your car or truck. Even if an animal, a pet of some kind, threw up in your car, you need to replace the carpet, Rock Auto has that for you as well. You can replace that yourself. That's easy. Go check it out, rockauto.com. Right, Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box? So they know that we sent you. You can save more from a family business that's serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. All right, gentlemen, let's get into the rest of the games in the association. Took a weird turn there in the middle of that second segment. Anytime Jackson and I do a pod together, it always goes off the rails, and it never happened before where somebody else comes in and takes it off the rails for us.
But it's still, hey, we're still on brand, Nick, in that when you and I get on a podcast, it doesn't matter if it's Locked on Rockets, Locked on Mavericks, Locked on NBA, the roundtables that we do, it always comes off the rails in some way, shape, or form. And I'm glad that we're staying on brand with this episode.
Something always weird happens. All right, speaking of weird things happening, the Lakers somehow are just like tanking before our eyes, but not even meaning to. They lose 139 to 130 against the Houston Rockets. Jackson Gatlin, you were there. What was it like seeing Jalen Green go off in overtime?
Well, here's the thing, Nick. First off, it was just so great to see two scrappy, competitive, rebuilding teams going at it in one game. Like, it was so wonderful to see. No, legitimately, this was Jalen Green continues to prove, in this second stint of the season, really since about the early mark of February, why he was the number 2 overall pick. And there were a lot of comparisons drawn between Jalen Green and the optimism with, kind of the way that he struggled in the earlier part of the season and, was being labeled a bust and all this was, okay, give it some time. Let's see what he can do and put together in the second half of the season, a la an Anthony Edwards. And hey, lo and behold, here's what we're seeing now. Jalen Green over his past 10 games is averaging 21 points a contest on about 50% shooting and then 38% from three. He is putting it together in this back half of the season. And in this game against the Lakers, it was an absurd finish. Jalen Green had at one point he had 13 points in a row for the Rockets. He had the final 6 in regulation, and he had the first 7 points in overtime, went on a personal 7-0 run to start overtime and give the Rockets 127-120 lead over the Lakers. And then ultimately down the stretch of the game, he had what was essentially the dagger three-pointer to really put away the Lakers. And then said after the game, we targeted Carmelo Anthony. That was the game plan. It was the funniest thing ever. Came straight out in the post-game interview, said it twice in the post-game interview on the floor. And then when asked about it post-game, he revisited it again. And I think a big part of that is because Carmelo gave him a couple shoves, a couple chicken wings during the game, was playing a little physical. Shiver. Yeah, kind of a welcome to the league moment. I don't think Jalen Green took too kindly to that. So he made no qualms about making sure that Melo knew that he was the game plan. They were attacking him. They absolutely abused Carmelo Anthony in the pick and roll. And the Lakers are toast, man. They do not look great.
Speaking of knowing what it's like to abuse Carmelo Anthony, Alex, you're in New York media, right? Like,
Yeah.
What a segue.
I know the Carmelo Anthony experience. I mean, yeah, his defense has been cooked since about 2015, so it's no big surprise to me.
My favorite part of the Rockets' overtime win, though, was the grenade Jalen Green threw to KPJ. Right, but right before they made it a 10-point lead in overtime, he literally, with 2 seconds left, he throws the ball to KPJ right next to him and is like, "Here, the shot clock's about to go off." And KPJ somehow, almost granny shot through the ball from his hip and made a 3. It was one of the craziest shots I've seen, and it was absolutely wild. The Lakers are dead, guys. Right? There's no coming back from them. We don't have to spend more time on them. Speaking of not spending too much time on it, the Mavs did not spend very much time on their offensive game plan in this one. They get beat by the New York Knicks. This is a rough one for the Dallas Mavericks. The Knicks looking like they did last year, went 107-77. The Mavs missed 38 threes in this one. After the game, Julius Randle said, "That was probably our best defensive performance of the year, I would say. Let's continue to play our game." Count it up. Where we count out the funniest, most interesting things in the NBA. So, Alex Wolfe, count it up. How much do you credit another team's defense when the team misses 33s in a game?
All right, look, the NBA is a semi-luck-based league, but this objectively, as a Knicks fan, this is probably some of the best swarming defense they've played all year.
I agree.
I think that they got the Mavs out of their comfort zone early, and then they sort of got in their own heads, and then they went 0 for 19 or whatever to start. After they hit a few in that little third quarter run, that cute little attempt to come back.
Whoa. The name calling.
And then, RJ Barrett and Julius Randle put their foot down and said, "No more." For the third time all season. I think the Knicks defense deserves some credit for that. So I'm going to go with I think that's for real. I think that Julius is speaking truth because their defense has been pretty horrendous many other times.
Yeah, I can't speak to how well their defense has been in other games, but this one, it was good. They kept the Mavs out of the paint, and I'll give them credit for this one for sure. All right, the Chicago Bulls get a win, 114 over the Detroit Pistons to 108. DeMar DeRozan scores 35 plus points again. Yawn. He continues to do it. 20 plus points from Vooch and from Zach LaVine. Guys, count it up. Bulls right now are the 4 and the Celtics are the 5. In a first round playoff series, count it up. How many games does this series go, Jackson Gatlin?
Ooh, I'm going to go a competitive 7-game series. I'm counting all the way up to 7. 7-game series, and I'm going to go with the Boston Celtics upset. They're playing some impressive basketball the second half of this season. I mean, they've been on a tear. Like the Celtics have finally put it together after a rough start to the beginning of their season. They're molding well. They're looking good. Obviously, health permitting between Jalen Brown and company and Jason Tatum. But with those two guys together, I mean, man, yeah, I'm going Celtics.
Alex, how many games does it go?
I'm going to also say 7, but I'm going to say Bulls because I just think I think they have more guys that can potentially close out a playoff game for you versus the Celtics who basically just have Tatum.
I need to know who's healthy. If Caruso and Lonzo are healthy, I'm feeling a little better about that Bulls team because you know where you're going to get some defense from that Celtics team, but where are you going to get the offense, especially if those two guys, Caruso and Lonzo, are healthy. If they're healthy, I'm going Bulls in 6. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the Bulls. I'm giving it up for the Bulls. Speaking of feeling it, the Milwaukee Bucks, 124-115, get the win over the Atlanta Hawks. Giannis making his claim for MVP as well. 43 points, 12 boards, 5 assists in this game, and just taking out Clint Capella. He played just 19 minutes, 5 fouls for him. John Collins was 0 for 9. I mean, just absolutely stifling in this game. This Atlanta team, Alex, started the season saying... we're over the regular season. Just bring me playoffs like Thor in Infinity War or Endgame, whichever one that was.
Infinity War, but yes.
Alex Wolfe, count it up. How many deep playoff runs do you have to go before you're allowed to say we're over the regular season?
Certainly more than one. You probably want to make sure you're not in the play-in conversation before you go making those sort of proclamations. Yeah, let's say 3. Maybe 3 deep playoff runs, at least second round, and the second round series has to go at least 6 games.
I mean, they made it to this is so weird that this game was a Eastern Conference Finals like last year.
Mm-hmm.
That's so wild to me that was this game.
It is weird because one team clearly belonged and one team clearly didn't.
Any chance to get a shot on the Hawks?
Oh, I love it.
Any chance to get a win? The Orlando Magic win 108-102 against the New Orleans Pelicans. Brandon Ingram out for this game, and he's going to be out for a week now, actually. Nance still out. Zion, who knows when Zion's ever going to come back. Jake Madison seems to be the only person with any real information, so if you want more on that, listen to Locked On Pelicans. But the Magic get a win. The same night, the Rockets get a win. And in this fourth quarter, Jamal Mosley, the Magic coach, played this lineup of Wagner, but not that Wagner, Mo Wagner, the other one, not their good Wagner, Gary Harris, Terrence Ross, Chuma Okeke, and RJ Hampton. That lineup played the entire fourth quarter. That was their bench lineup. None of those guys got to start in this one. They scored 27 points and got the win against the Pelicans. Count it up. Jackson Gatlin, count it up. How much is Jamal Mosley fumbling the lottery bag right now and not keeping the number 1 pick?
I mean, I guess we'll just count it up to what I counted up all the way to 10. Like if you're playing vets like that,
you can name the number.
There we go. I mean, he's fumbling up to 3 picks. We'll go with that. When the Magic walk away with the 5th or the 6th overall pick in this year's draft, you can just point the finger at this game specifically and be upset with Jamal Mosley for that.
Now, it doesn't really matter 1 through 3, basically, right? Because they flatten the lottery odds out, and it's okay, I guess, if the Magic get a couple wins here and there. Philip Rossman-Reich from Locked On Magic would say, hey, process over results in this. They got to win some games at some point, learn how to win, But yeah, that was an interesting win for them. The Pelicans really needed that one.
I would just say good for him. Who cares? When was the last time? As a team that had number 1 lottery odds, got the number 3 pick. Screw the lottery. Don't base your stuff off that anymore.
They win. Who cares? Who's ever done that in the past and it's not worked out for them?
But
a team that lottery odds is actually working out for them right now is the Minnesota Timberwolves. They win 132-102 against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Oh, guys, Oklahoma's missing so many players right now. Giddey is out. Dort and Ty Jerome are out for the year. Jeremiah Robinson Earl, Kenny Hustle, Trey Mann, Derek Favors, and Moose are all out for the Oklahoma City Thunder. SGA tried his darndest, but he just got met with doubles everywhere he went on the court. But I want to focus on the Minnesota Timberwolves. Malik Beasley, 11 for 17 from the field, 11 for 17 from 3, 1 assist, and he scored 33 points in just 29 minutes. Guys, count it up. How much do you respect the line of a shooter that literally only takes threes and goes 11 of 17? I respect it. I respect that big time.
Yeah, I respect it big time too. I mean, good for him, man. He knows his role. No,
I gotta say, the one thing in this that upsets me is the assist, right?
Yeah, 1 assist.
So
you can't
one
have
assist,
that.
like, come on, man. Just throw up one more three. Just see if you can get 12.
You can't be a hopeless gunner and be passing the ball. You know.
Yeah, I mean, hey, shooters shoot, and to have all 17 of your attempts come from deep, and to also go 11 of 17, just impressive. I respect it absolutely.
That is a shooter's stat line right there. Speaking of shooters, the Utah Jazz win 123-85 against the Portland Trailblazers. The lineup the Blazers are playing right now is like criminal. Like, I know we're talking a lot about how the Thunder are dropping a lot of guys, but this was the starting lineup for the Blazers. Elijah Hughes, CJ Ellaby, Drew Eubanks, Brandon Williams. Guys, Brandon Williams doesn't even have a picture on NBA.com. My guy is the circle with the NBA logo in the middle of it. And then Josh Hart. The inactives for Portland are Lillard, Ingles, Anthony Simons, Eric Bledsoe, who I forgot was on the Blazers, Nasir Little, Nurkic, and then Justice Winslow. Guys, count it up. Count it up for me. Our boss, David Locke, the radio voice of the Utah Jazz, how many minutes into this game did he have his shoes off and his feet up on the desk as he was calling this game? Because it was over.
I'm going to go 16 minutes.
16 minutes. By the second quarter,
By the second quarter, he was feet up on the dash, just relaxing, enjoying. He ordered a coffee, like just hanging out, having a grand old time.
The Jazz had a 51-point lead in this game at one point.
Yeah, I'm going to say tip off. Why wouldn't he be relaxed right away? Like,
the Blazers had a 2-point lead at one point. At one point, it seemed like it was going to be a game.
2-0. big moment.
They get the win, and a team that really wants a win right now is the San Antonio Spurs, because Greg Popovich is 1 win away from the all-time coaching record for wins. But the San Antonio Spurs fall to the Toronto Raptors. We've talked about the Toronto Raptors on this show a lot. They're the team that everyone in the East seems to want to avoid in the playoffs. But, guys, count it up. How many games until Greg Popovich breaks the record for most wins in NBA coaching history?
Looking at their schedule, at home, Utah, at home, Indy, at home, Minnesota. I'm not going to guarantee any of those because the Spurs aren't very good. I'm going to say at home versus Oklahoma City, Wednesday, March 16th.
Under the wire, they get it there with that home stretch. So that is coming up for the San Antonio Spurs. So we'll see what happens. I'm curious to see who's there. How do you plan for that, right? Like, do you just keep if you're going to do any ceremony or anything, you just bring all the stuff with you to each home game until they finally get it?
Just every single time, right? It's just like when a team has a chance to close out a series in the playoffs. They've got all the hats, all the T-shirts, everything loaded up, every single appearance, just ready to go.
Not the red carpet is rolled out against the Spurs. We don't want to do that again for the Spurs. Oh my gosh, they're having flashbacks. All right, last game of the association. The Clippers win 115-109. This Clippers team, do they own LA? They're 5 games better than the Lakers right now. That's wild to me still. I know that they've been without their guys, but the Lakers, it's wild that this Clippers team is way better than this Lakers team right now. But I want to focus on the Washington Wizards. Kristaps Porzingis in his second game scores 19 points. Both of us, Alex, have had experience with Kristaps Porzingis. He gets a post up late in the game and throws it up against Amir Coffey, a wing that he does not do well against the post, misses the shot, could have tied the game, could have ended up getting the win. How are you feeling about Porzingis in another spot?
I mean, first off, it's great to be united on this cause finally.
I was going to say finally.
Hey, I might be united here soon. John Wall said he's open to a return to Washington. Those contracts are real similar, so could be talking about Porzingis in a Rockets jersey this summer. Please don't put that
him and Şengün would fit well together.
At any rate, I will just I will count in the spirit of the segment. I will count that result as predictable.
I will as well. I honestly do hope he does well in Washington. I don't have much hope for him.
I do not.
There you go. If you want to hear more about the Knicks, go listen to Locked On Knicks. Want to hear more about the Rockets? Jackson Gatlin will maybe record an episode at some point tonight. Go check out Locked On Rockets, Locked On Mavs for me. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On NBA. Boom.